I'd like to begin today with some lyrics from Prince E.A., a Buddhist rapper and poet that Reverend Jerry Handy turned me on to a number of years ago. These are some excerpted lyrics from a song he calls "Dear Future Generations, Sorry." Dear future generations, I think I speak for the rest of us when I say, sorry. Sorry we left you our mess of a planet. Sorry that we were too caught up in our own doings to do something. Sorry we listened to people who made excuses to do nothing. I hope you forgive us. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we put profit over people, greed over need, the rule of gold above the golden rule. I'm sorry we use nature as a credit card with no spending limit, overdrafting animals to extinction, stealing your chance to ever see their uniqueness or become friends with them. Sorry we poison the ocean so much that you can't even swim in them. But most of all, I'm sorry about our mindset, because we had the nerve to call this destruction progress. When I think about the state of our planet, it's hard not to be filled with despair. And when I imagine how much work there is to be done in the world, it can seem selfish to sit in the grass and let ants crawl over my fingers. But when I lament the directions our world turns in and the destruction that humanity causes, sometimes it can become especially important to connect to the natural world. Malidoma Patrice Somé, a spiritual leader from the West African Dagara culture, describes the pull of our human-made, industrial, and technological world that we live in places like this, as a machine. It emits a magnetic-like, elusive pull on us. How many of us feel a pull toward the devices in our lives? My husband works for Google. I don't even know what all the things in our apartment are, but I know that I like them. I don't mean to say that our technology and innovation has been all bad, but Earth Day every year seems to remind me how difficult it can be to disconnect from the pulls and restrictions of our everyday lives. Some of us find ourselves working too much to experience a good dose of the natural world, or the work continues in our minds even when we take a break, so that we can't be fully in the moment. Some of us experience anxiety, depression, or other mental barriers that keep us inside or keep us from experiencing life fully. Some of us have physical limitations that keep us inside or from being able to experience the world the way that we would like. It can be a frustration, a longing in us to be able to experience what something inside of us knows exists. That peace we can find, or maybe just remember, when our concerns slip away and we know our place in the world. I know that most often my experiences like that are outside. But even being outside can give us anxiety about what the future of our world will look like for the 7th generation. Somé says that the hurt a person feels in the midst of this modern culture should be taken as a language spoken to himself or herself by the body. And the meaning of such language is found in doing something about the part of oneself that is not acknowledged. He believes that we do this through ritual, through reconnecting to something more fundamental. The author of Ecclesiastes seems to sense something similar. The things we create can never provide us the same kind of satisfaction that nature can. Oceans, love, redwoods, snow-capped mountains, baby laughter, getting your toes wet at the shoreline. They're pleasures that exceed what Facebook and video games have to offer. Philip Yancey, an evangelical author, says that we sense eternity in our hearts, that sense of God. I don't agree with Yancey on everything, but I think he's right about that. I think the sense of eternity is part of what makes us an ambitious species. It's part of what leads us deep into the wilderness and high up onto skyscrapers. Maybe it's what tells us to reach for more, and maybe sometimes we misplace the more we're really looking for. We misplace it with forms of consumption or by expecting more experiences instead of experiencing more. But maybe it's also what keeps people marching, like at yesterday's science marches that happened all over the place. Maybe it's what keeps us insisting on resurrection and eternity. Works like Ecclesiastes don't come from points in the Jewish history like the Exodus, when people are wandering in the desert. It comes from one of those points in history at which a society starts glimpsing its brink. For some of us, recent political events have started to feel like the brink in some ways. History and all of life follows cycles of death and rebirth. But we are given eternity to seek. And something inside of us knows that truth. We can meet it with despair or apathy, with a happy-faced message of health and prosperity, with an asceticism that denies us pleasure. Or like the author of Ecclesiastes, we can meet it with a certain sense of reality. A head-on look at joy, loneliness, greed, and what it means to be successful or fulfilled. It's a little confusing, and we'll disagree. Scholars do about Ecclesiastes and what it all means. But we need this realism, a realism that knows Good Friday comes before resurrection. A realism that believes in eternity and seeks it in the face of the odds. A realism that knows we keep these books and all of their complicated truths because they teach us something about the cycles of history, kingdoms, and life. They teach us how to cry out for God in a different way. I return to how Prince E.A. closes his song. It's up to us to take care of this planet. It's our only home. We must globally warm our hearts and change the climate of our souls. And realize that we are not apart from nature, we are a part of nature. And to betray nature is to betray us. To save nature is to save us. Because whatever you're fighting for, racism, poverty, feminism, gay rights, or any type of equality, it won't matter in the least. Because if we don't work all together to save the environment, we will be equally extinct. Sorry. In the words of T.S. Eliot, the only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility. Humility is endless. So I'd like to close this a little differently today and transition a little differently with a moment of prayer. Let us pray. Shepherd God, guide your people to be stewards of the earth. Creator of lush landscapes, you promise to nourish us with fruit of the garden. We till the earth, drawing blood from her veins. She cries out from the scientists among us, and we drill into her for oil. We trample her with cattle. We poison her with pesticides. We experiment on her, altering her DNA. Creator, grow your tree of life among us. Shepherd of lost sheep, we have stolen your flocks and massacred them. We have enslaved your creation and tortured their bodies. We have sacrificed them to the gods of gluttony and greed. God of light, come into the garden. Find us and illuminate us. You have expelled us and we have forgotten your commands. Please find us. Call us into the flock. Call us back to the earth. Help us to water the tree of life. Help us to plant and grow. And lead us not into temptation, but away from destruction. Yours is the kingdom and the garden. Guide us in our citizenship and stewardship so that we may continue to enjoy your abundance into eternity. Amen.